Hello, welcome to the Sideboard here at the StarCityGames.com Standard Open in Baltimore, brought to you by Ultimate Guard. I'm Nick Miller alongside Robert Wright. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good.
Doing good. You worked with Todd Stevens on this black-green Delirium deck that he went 10-4 with last weekend. You went
11-4.
11-4, you went 10-5.
Yeah.
But you guys have been working with this deck. He said to talk to you for the deck tech. We wanted to do it last week, but now we're going to get it this week. You guys have updated it. You have some new cards, things like that. I think the real question people want to know is this deck for real? Because people saw this, they saw all the cards with Delirium in the text boxes. They want to know, can it compete in the world of Bant Company?
So basically, you can get a lot of the information from Todd Stevens' article as well. So this is basically, I'm going to expand on that. Grim Flare is, it's like the first card I want to really talk about because everybody's kind of not sure about the card is the best way to put it, just because it doesn't tangle with Sylvan Advocate or any of the 2/3s in the format. But we've built our deck in a way where you can look at the deck kind of like a Delverish style, where we're creating like these small creatures early on and using our, I believe it's 11 or 12 removal spells, maybe even like 13 at this point, just to clear a path and connect. Because once Grim Flare connects, since we have such a varied amount of card types in our deck, we're able to just trash the first 3 cards that we look at for the most part and just turn on Delirium immediately, unless we're looking for something like a land or there's multiple card types in the top of our deck.
Right, when people looked at this card from the spoiler, they immediately saw that this card was clearly powerful. It's just, can it exist in a world where everything's a 2/3?
Yes, absolutely. It's all based on, as I said, how you build your deck. It also curves with Liliana, and Liliana's really good at clearing a path for Grim Flare. And as long as you make all your opponent's creatures O2s, and you connect with this card once or twice, for example, the Bant Collected Company deck is a really tough time once you have a 4/4 with Trample on the 3rd turn of the game. As far as cards like Spell Queller go, you look at, there's another engine in here, the Den Protector Death Misraptor engine, and that's another thing that you look at and be like, I don't think this is good against Spell Queller, because if they Spell Queller your Den Protector Morph, it just kind of like nullifies the card entirely. But the way the deck works is you basically get to force them to be on the back foot because you're playing such an aggressive curve of like 4 1-mana creatures, 4 2-mana creatures, and then you're also playing Transgresses now to help clear the path and guarantee that Den Protector on 5 is going to enter face down.
Right, you're not looking to play Den Protector early on anyway into Spell Queller. You get to play it later as your graveyard fills up and then get the real value off of it.
Exactly. You can't look at this deck like a control deck or like the Seasons Past deck. You have to look at it more as like a zoo deck.
Sure. Let's talk about the 1-drop, because this is a card that we saw Todd play, Gnarlwood Dryad. The 1-drop, this seems like one of the real key components to the deck. This is one of the payoff cards. This is why you want to be playing Delirium.
This card is like very hard to explain right now. We live in a world where Dromoka's Command exists, and that card is absolutely horrendous. When I was first playing first testing this deck out, I was playing against another SCG writer, Emma Handy a bunch, and she said she just sideboarded her Dromoka's Commands out because I was playing all these Death Touch creatures. And she said the card's just like laughable against these creatures.
Right.
It's also funny because it comes in such a cheap rate. It's just like a Typhoid Rat, a 1-mana 1/1 Death Touch, that they never want to Reflector Mage, so it just kind of like sticks around, and they can never get rid of it.
Right. It's kind of there, it's an annoyance, and then you start getting in damage with it, and then they realize, oh, this is a card I have to deal with. Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, because you have so much Death Touch between those 2 creatures and Death Misraptor. If they want to fight with anything, they're probably going to lose their creature.
Exactly.
All right, so we also have the Den Protector engine, which we talked about. We saw this a lot in old seasons of Standard, but now it's kind of making a comeback. And then Ishkanah, Grath Widow. This card was another highlight of the reason you want to be playing the Delirium deck.
Everybody that plays this card says it's phenomenal, and I'm going to say the exact same thing. This card is, once you resolve it for the first time, let's say for example against like a Spirit's opponent, and you get the 3 spiders, the game just ends on the spot for the most part. Its base body by itself can tangle with Absyn and just block the front side of Avacyn, as well as the fact that it can block all the 2/3s out of Bant Collected Company, and that's not even factoring in the fact that it makes, I think it's like 6 power, 11 toughness for 5 mana over 4 bodies.
Right.
That's just a really gross rate.
then the icing on the cake is the ability where if you actually reach the point, you can just start draining them out with all your spiders.
Exactly. There's a lot of situations where they have to keep removing my Ishkanon, then I'll use cards like Liliana or Den Protector to keep bringing it back. And they have to go out of their way every turn to get rid of the base body while I'm continuing to make like this spider army over time.
Right. We saw this last week as well with Ronnie Rittner's deck, using Liliana in conjunction with Bruna to continue to kind of get those bodies back. Whereas you get to Liliana back, a Den Protector, bring back, you know, even more creatures or more cards that way, even Deathless Raptor if it's in the graveyard with the Morph Flip.
Exactly. So I think everybody at this point is like familiar with how Den Protector and Deathless Raptor work and how it just accrues value over time by continuing to loop 2 Den Protectors to get them back to back to back. But with Liliana going, once you have access to Liliana as well, you get to start using your Den Protectors aggressively because Liliana buys back your Den Protector. So you can use the second Den Protector that you brought back to get something back like a removal spell or an interaction spell or an Ishkana to just keep pressuring your opponent and adding to the board while also just creating like this unstoppable wall of creatures.
Sure, of course you have a bunch of removal spells, Deadweight, Grasp of Darkness, Murder, Ruinous Path, we've seen all those before. Murder's kind of the new one here, just an instant speed card you have to have in the format.
Yeah, it's a card that I felt like everybody just kind of complained about because they were like, I guess we're getting Murder back. But it's funny how valuable like an instant speed, just destroy target creature, no drawbacks is in this format right now. Everybody's kind of, what's the best way to explain it? Everybody's relying on creatures so much and like specific creatures doing specific things that like just having access to a way to kill Avacyn, for example, like ways to kill Avacyn 5 and 6.
Sure.
Or a way to interact with Spell Queller on not your turn or within combat or something is just so vital.
Okay, let's touch on just the last couple of key Cyborg cards here. Aerial Volley, a lot of people were going to last weekend because of the popularity of the Bandit Company. You got more removal spells, more discard. Of course, you got a Kalitas in here, another Spider. What are the big hitters here in the Cyborg?
So the big changes we did, originally we just put a Languish in the sideboard as the 15th card last weekend, and the card was fantastic, and we felt like there were so many situations where we just needed to draw a Languish to win the game. So we just added the second one, and then we essentially have a third one in the Dark Petition that we've added to the deck. This was something I really wanted to play because it allows us with Spell Mastery, which is pretty easy to accrue with this deck with all the instants and sorceries we're playing, as well as the fact that Grimflayer just throws cards in the graveyard. That we can just get a Liliana, a Ruinous Path, a Den Protector, and play it as a Morph. There's so many cards that you can play for this 3 black mana in this format, as well as Infinite Obliteration. Todd said I didn't get to play against Ramp, but he said the matchup felt really rough for him because we're kind of aggressive, but we can't really. We also are really good at stalling the board out, but it's very hard to stall the board out when your opponent is like playing an Ulamog every turn and flashing back Codes Likes return. So we wanted a way to get rid of Ulamogs and World Breakers.
We saw this last season when the ramp decks came out. Everyone knew they needed a way to beat those decks, and Obliteration is the way to go. All right, well, you guys have worked on this deck. You've been tuning it for a couple weeks. I think it's pretty well positioned. You guys both had pretty reasonable results last week, so thanks for joining me in the sideboard.
Thank you so much, Nick.
Stay tuned to StarCityGames.com all weekend long for the action here in Baltimore.